Okay. So, oops. Okay, right. So, good evening, everyone. It's really super to have everybody here. I now need to, sorry, I'm just going to come out of this again. Apologies. Let me just stop this a sec. I'm just having a few, okay. And just try this. Okay, does that work? Why does that not work? Oops. I do apologise. I'm now having real trouble with my... Right. I'm not... Becca, have you made me host? Because I can't move my slides on.
Your co-host.
Okay.
Shouldn't make it.
It won't let me move
I can make you a host.
Yeah, I think I need to be host to be able to move my slides on. I do apologise, everybody. This is the joys of trying to do things from...
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't need to be.
Oh,
you should
did you just move something? Oh, I can do it now. Okay, I don't know what you did, but it's working now. Thank you. Okay, right. So,
your host now.
Good, that's it. Okay, we're there. I do apologise. Right, start again.
Anyway.
Okay. So, welcome to this evening's presentation about neurodiversity. It's Neurodiversity Celebration Week this week, and as part of a series of webinars, we thought that we would actually do one around what is neurodiversity. So my name's Amanda, and I'm the co-founder and director of Neurodiversity Networks and the Neurodiversity Hub, which is based in Wellingborough, or the hub is based in Wellingborough. Neurodiversity Networks works across the whole of the UK. And we're a community interest company set up by myself and Janine Harris, who is also the director of ADHD Wise UK. Becca, you're not on mute. We can hear you. So we're going to be talking about what is neurodiversity and why does it matter?
I can't see anything.
Can everyone just make...
I accidentally made another Amanda.
Can everybody make sure they're on mute? Okay, right. So, neurodiversity is, and you will notice that I've added some question marks, a viewpoint, a concept, a movement, a shared understanding, a paradigm. These are all words that I've read when I've read around neurodiversity. It may be all of these, some of these, or for some people they may feel it's none of the above, but hopefully by the end of this session you will have an understanding of kind of I suppose the concept of neurodiversity and why it matters and how it could really make a difference and why it might matter to you. So what it isn't is a diagnosis. It's not an exclusive group. It's not another name for autism. It's not a means of labeling people or othering them. So developing this idea that some people are other in another group and not part of a different group. It's not a fixed concept. It seems to be quite an organic concept in the way that it's developed over the last couple of decades. And it's not an either or. It's not a binary, you either are or you're not. As we kind of talk about it a little bit more, we'll see that it's kind of more fluid and in a sense more complex than it being just a very fixed either or. So the term neurodiversity was thought to first be used in the early 90s by an Australian sociologist called Judy Singer, who was autistic herself, and very much felt strongly that this should not be a negative. And it was part of quite a big movement around disability equality rights and that sort of thing. And at about the same time, there was a journalist called Harvey Bloom who was also talking about similar ways of thinking about certain differences. So neuro is relating to the nervous system and primarily the brain, and diversity is around recognizing the importance of difference. So we have biodiversity, for example, which we know is vital to the planet's survival. So it's this idea that diversity is a positive. So neurodiversity is about our brains, about how we process, think, feel, behave, and communicate, and the differences that exist. So if you do a kind of quick Google search for neurodiversity and come up with some images, these are just three that I pulled up, really just to give you an idea of how diverse neurodiversity can be. There are certain conditions or learning differences that we tend to associate with neurodiversity, but they are not a kind of a list that is closed. The bottom one was actually written by Nancy Doyle, who is a kind of I'd love to call her a colleague. I haven't had the pleasure of working with her, but she is very much working in the same kind of area as we all are, and she created this wonderful infographic that looks at some of the neurodiverse conditions, and then obviously as included some positives around some of those things. You can see authenticity, honesty, hyperfocus, resilience. So that's a really nice one. But you tend to get different things come up when you kind of ask the question, what is neurodiversity? There are some conditions that are often associated with neurodiversity. This is not an exhaustive list, but in the main, when people are talking about neurodiversity, there tends to be an understanding that there are conditions that are included, which include ADHD, so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism spectrum condition, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, tics and Tourette's, developmental language disorder, and learning disorder or intellectual disability. That's not the full list. I have listened to some podcasts and webinars where people who have got epilepsy, for example, very much consider themselves to be under that umbrella of neurodiversity, cerebral palsy. So it is not a fixed list. It is not a set of diagnoses. It's more a recognition and understanding of the differences that we have in our brains, the way that they're wired, the way that we learn, and that those things come from we have them from birth, and they are part of who we are. So,
Amanda,
hello.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt everybody.
Okay.
I've made the wrong Amanda co-host, which means that I am no longer co-host, which is obviously problematic.
Okay.
Would Amanda Kappa or you, Amanda, be able to fix that for me? Because I can't see.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone.
That's okay. That's probably my fault for only putting my first name. Right. Hold on one second. Let me just.
I did message the other Amanda, but I don't.
Okay. Okay. Just hold on one second. I'm just looking.
No, totally my bad.
Right. Let's have a look. I don't know. Oh, hold on. Let's see. I think I need to go to participants. Aha. Right. Oh no, I nearly unhosted myself. Okay, so I don't appear to be able to change that. So if because Amanda Kappa is the host. So I'm only a co-host. I can't change that, Becca, I'm afraid. So I think we'll just have to trust that Amanda will sit on her hands and do nothing. Sorry about that. All right.
Can you access the waiting room? Is there anyone in there?
Not that I can see, no. It's not coming up, so no, I don't think so. Okay, let's carry on. So, can you see that screen share, Becca? I hope so. Yeah, no, I can't access the waiting room, so I was getting notifications, so I assume nobody's waiting. So the point of these infographics is to just show you that, so if we just go back to this list for a minute, that part of why in some ways the term neurodiversity is quite useful is that in a sense it encompasses a wide range of differences. And if we then go to these infographics and have a look, you'll see that there is such an overlap between many of the differences and conditions. The one on the right is American, actually, so those statistics are possibly based on American research, but the one on sorry, the one on the left is the one on the ADHD Foundation one. Looks at the comorbid conditions with ADHD, so you can see there is quite a lot of prevalence in those with ADHD also meeting the criteria for autism, Tourette's, learning disorders, and then you've also got mental health difficulties and some conduct disorders. So looking at neurodiversity as more of a holistic, broad umbrella, looking at the whole person is quite useful. And this is just some figures around the co-occurrence of different conditions with in adults with autism. So you can see that sort of the big chunks there with ADHD and anxiety and intellectual disability, they're quite large percentages of overlap between those conditions and adults with autism. However, what's really important about this concept of neurodiversity is that it's not about focusing on all the things that are kind of wrong, in inverted commas, all the things that perhaps can be medicalized, diagnosed. It's very much around embracing and recognizing how important it is that people are wired differently. And viewing these differences as actually completely normal and, as I would argue, in fact, totally essential to the human condition. And I love this idea that actually without neurodiversity, without all the brilliant brains and all the differences in the way in which we are wired and the way in which we see things and do things, humans would not even exist. So we needed the risk takers who will reach out and you know, try the fruit or the berry that no one has ever tried before and take that risk. We need those people who, when the tribe runs out of water, are willing to go and run 100 miles over the next hill where no one's ever been before to find the spring of fresh water. We need those people who are so focused and determined to you know, to find the answer to something unwaveringly, to be able to have developed into the kind of the human race that we are. So we absolutely need these differences. And I think as a principle, that's really where neurodiversity kind of comes in as being so important, especially if you have a young person, perhaps you know, your own child, or you're working with a child or children, or an adult who maybe they're wired a bit differently. It's really about celebrating that difference, saying actually that's really important. So it's understanding that when we have these differences, they don't need to be fixed or cured. They're not broken. They need acceptance and understanding, and at times support. But it's not a case of medicalizing these different conditions and saying there is something wrong with you and that it's not okay that you are like this, and that we are going to do things to you and train you, or you know, teach you to be completely different to who you are. So as understanding every individual has their own unique profile of strengths and difficulties. And at this point, I really want to just mention this idea of difference versus disability, because I think there are some people who it's very difficult to take on board this idea of celebrating neurodiversity or celebrating their difference, because they genuinely have some real struggles. And actually, some of the things that they have to manage every day cause real barriers to them achieving, and there are challenges. And I think neurodiversity is also about acknowledging the fact that it's not all jumping for joy saying everything is brilliant. It's about awareness of some of those difficulties, and that there might need to be support put in place, changes in the environment, changes in the way in which we communicate with those people, in order to help them to be the best they can be, but also at the same time saying, it's, you know, but there are strengths and things to celebrate. For some, disability or diagnosis is genuinely also something that can be really positive, because it does give some protection in terms of being a protected characteristic. So under the Equalities Act, you know, at school or at work, absolutely, that's not to say that there is no value in having a diagnosis or recognizing that sometimes the difficulties someone have might be called a disability. But it's really important to recognize both. You know, again, it doesn't have to be either or. You know, you can have a disability and be entitled to that protection and be entitled to reasonable adjustments and support, and still be allowed to celebrate the things that you can do and the things that you can do way better than lots of other people, and that you are important. So really feel that that's an important point to make as well. So the reason it's important, the reason it matters, the reason Neurodiversity Celebration Week is this week, and why those people who are involved in raising awareness and supporting this principle is there's such positive outcomes that can come from working within this kind of structure of neurodiversity. It is about discovering people's strengths and passions, both in you know, in ourselves and in others. So reflecting on ourselves, on our own perhaps challenges and difficulties that we might have, but also saying, well, hold on a minute, does that not also mean that sometimes I'm really good at this? So encouraging that, a deeper understanding of individual strengths and talents, and then that allows there to be praise and recognition for those things, which boosts self-esteem. So important if you've got children, because as you saw from one of those infographics, the crossover between a lot of these conditions and mental health difficulties is frighteningly common, and a lot of that will come from having to function in an environment and a society that doesn't appreciate who you are and doesn't recognize your talents and strengths. It creates frames of reference so that actually the right support and adjustments can be made in the right places by the right people, and still there is plenty of room for celebrating all the strengths. So it's a coming together of the two, recognizing support when needed, but also recognizing that just because somebody might have some barriers and might need support and adjustments for certain things, that doesn't take away from their brilliance. It's a move away from medicalizing people's differences in order to create environments that allow them to flourish. So rather than seeing these conditions or disorders as things that are bad and that need fixing, really focuses on what people around can do to help, and how the environments can be created so that actually those barriers are not there anymore. And so these things really are what we call the strength-based approaches, which allow people to achieve their potential. So rather than simply focusing on they can't do this, they can't do that, they're not very good at this, so we need to put this in place and this in place, making sure that there's also strength-based approaches in the workplace, in the classroom, and at home. So, okay, that's not your strong point. Maybe we're just not going to expect you to be doing that all of the time, but hey, you are amazing at this, so let's do more of that. And they're just some of the positive outcomes from understanding the idea around neurodiversity as being a positive and something to celebrate. So where would we be without this neurodiversity concept? Well, the world of neurodiversity is full of creativity, innovation, sensitivity, passion, inspiration, focus, courage. There's 100 more words that I could have put on this slide, but I didn't have time. But you know, I'd love it. Maybe if some of you can think of other words, stick them in the chat, because if we save the chat, then the next time that I do this talk, I shall fill this screen with the words that come to mind from you guys out there about all the beautiful, amazing things that the world of neurodiversity brings, so that everybody can kind of share in them. So, you know, please, by all means, put some inspiring words in the chat, and we'll save them for another time. Okay. So that was a whistle-stop tour of kind of just an overview of neurodiversity. So I haven't looked at the chat yet, so I'm going to just take 2 minutes to have a quick flick through. If any of you want to use that to, yeah, full of neurodiverse humor, love it. If anyone wants to take 2 minutes to just go and grab a drink or have a wiggle or whatever, do, because I am just literally going to whiz through this chat, and then we'll stop the recording and kind of open up the discussion, so that I can answer some of the questions. And you know, if some of you want to actually speak, that's absolutely fine. We'll just try not to all talk at the same time. So so yeah, go and have a quick, grab a glass of wine, tea, whatever takes your fancy, whilst I look at the chat, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.